Hi, my name is Paul Easker. I'm the Field Crops Extension Plant Pathologist with UW-Madison and UW Extension, and today it's the end of August and we're out here at the Arlington Research Station on the prairie to talk about making sure when you do some of these late season walks of the fields to identify what's going on out there. In particular, if you'll recall in the spring when we were talking about early stand establishment, we're actually coming back now late in the season to figure out some of the potential problems going on, and in particular we're going to talk about northern stem canker today in that equation. And so what you want to be looking for out here is some unique symptomology that might tip us off to stem canker over something, say like Phytophthora root and stem rot accordingly. We're out in the field, and what we want to be looking for is some sort of irregular patch pattern to looking for stem canker. And if we pan down a bit into the canopy here, you can see now there are different varieties out here, but what we start to notice is some wilting type leaf symptomology. In particular, here's a good example of that. The leaves have shut down completely, so we might say it could be drought induced, other stressors. But if we start to pan back on that canopy, what we start to see towards the base is actually a lesion that originated from one of the initial nodes. This is a good indicator that we actually have stem canker in the field. What this tells us, however, we're out here late in the season trying to figure out what went on. Infection really occurred early in the growing season. The literature states it might be from V1, the first trifoliate, up to about V7, depending on variety. Our experience in Wisconsin, we're probably a few weeks into production to that V3, third trifoliate period. And what happens is we get infection in there, sort of sits latent, and then as we get late in the season with other stressors, we really see it start to take off. As you saw in the field, what we're looking for is a period, an area where we get some wilting. If we come to look at plants, and here's a couple of examples of more severely infected, the petioles are still remaining attached, as is the leaf tissue. Now if we come in to look at this, what we can often do is take a look at that lower stem tissue. We'll see some reddish brown discoloration that's indicative of probably the area where infection occurred. If you actually look there in the more bleached section, we can start to see indications or signs of the pathogen itself for this disease, and that's something we can take back to the lab and do more diagnostics on. Now we see here as we pan up that stem tissue, we do start to see some darkening lesions on there, indicative of northern stem canker in particular. And in this situation, what we look at is this plant pretty much has shut down early on. There are pods with seed in there, but again, if you understand sort of the abiotic versus biotic factor, here's a situation where we'd look at it and say this is due to a biotic agent, such as the pathogen that causes northern stem canker. So in closing, what you see is not always what you get right now this time of year. We've had a lot of different stressors on there, both abiotic and weather related this year with the patterns we've had, but also biotic. And the key point I want to take home with this is just because we're seeing fields again like we saw in about 2008 with some soybean stands that are struggling a bit, we can't type everything out to Phytophthora. And I want to remind you to be looking for things like stem canker in this equation. And that key point we always emphasize with this is we're not seeing any sort of lesions or symptoms originating from the base of these soybean plants that are more typical of Phytophthora. We're seeing a lot of development in the early nodal structure where we think infection occurred in the vegetative growth, and that's elongating in some situations all the way out the entire soybean plant accordingly. Key point at harvest, pay attention then to the seed quality coming out. There are known relationships with Phomopsis species in that, so we could see an impact on some of the seed quality at harvest due to this disease as well.